32 reasons I'm in love with Final Fantasy XIV. Number 1, G-Pose. One of my favorite things about Final Fantasy XIV is the fact that you're able to take beautiful screenshots with the /G-Pose feature. You can pose your character, change their expression, apply filters, and take screenshots with other players. This extraordinary feature has taken over the community, so much so that developers are actually holding a screenshot contest, where the chosen submissions make it into an official scrapbook by the devs. The devs even chose to make some submissions into a high quality print for the people who submitted them. Number 2, level sync. As someone who came from playing World of Warcraft, I know the struggle of being unable to queue for dungeons with friends, unless you guys are the same level, right? Which is frustrating, especially if they're new to the game and wanting to play with you, or you're wanting to play with them if you're new to a game. Fortunately, 14 rids you of this frustration by adding a feature called level sync. It's quite self-explanatory, but if you have a level 17 dungeon where your friend is level 17 but you're level 80, you guys can still both party up and queue for the dungeon together, as you'll be synced to the same level as your friends. This feature is really good for the game, as it encourages the social aspect of the game. It really defeats the whole purpose of a social game if there exists this huge boundary of grind between like playing with your friends, right? Like it defeats the whole purpose. Number 3, body physics. Enough said. Number 4, emotes. There are probably about 50 to 100 emotes in the game that your character can perform. This feature is actually really cool and enables a lot of expression when it comes to roleplay, screenshots, socializing, and even just messing around. Number 5, merchandise. In my own opinion, Final Fantasy XIV has some of the best merch compared to other MMOs I've played. Heck, they've even got a mouse to play Final Fantasy on their site. Ranging from cool pins to some gear, to cute plushes, to towels, to Blu-ray albums, to statues. Final Fantasy XIV has some really high quality merchandise. I feel it's always important for a player to feel like they can possess a physical item in real life from the game, as it's a way to kind of express their passion for the game. I mean, check out this lore book I got for $50. It features really cool art and really comprehensive lore, and I can be a total nerd reading it and be unnecessarily devoted to being knowledgeable about the game, to the point where I might be viewed as someone who has no life. But I do have a life, right? I mean, I'm the warrior of light. Number 6, Etsy. Not only is the Final Fantasy XIV merch page filled with goodies, but there also exists an endless number of cool player-made goodies on Etsy as well. Pretty much anything you can think of. There exists on Etsy a lot of creative things that relate to Final Fantasy XIV. And again, they're not official, but made by creators and artists. With these items alone, you could totally just have an entire Final Fantasy themed room or something like that. It'd honestly be really cool. Number 7, Mog Station. Merchandise is great and all. You know, it's cool to be a total nerd and deck out your life with a world that doesn't actually exist. But you know what else is cool? Getting in-game merchandise. With the Mog Station, you can deck out your in-game life with goodies such as mounts, clothes, I said that weird, clothes, jewelry, and plastic surgery, also known as Fantasia. Ranging from motorcycles, to flying whales, to peacocks, to cute clothes, to slippers, to this thing, the Mog Station has a whole variety of goodies purchasable with real money. The Mog Station is simply a way for you to further butter up your character with bling. Or if you're like me, it's a way for you to flex your IRL money at people in-game because you have insecurity issues. Number 8, you can play instruments. Being able to play any combination of keys with instruments on your keyboard in Final Fantasy XIV is something I've always enjoyed. There's no better feeling than walking by your local bar just to get rickrolled, or watching a YouTube video of someone playing a very beautiful and talented rendition of some soundtrack. Being able to play an in-game instrument that requires real talent and musical knowledge is, in my opinion, an incredible feature to the game. One can just pour hours solely into practicing the Final Fantasy XIV instruments. Me personally, one time I stayed up till like 5 a.m. like looking at a musical sheet for All-Star by Smash Mouth, like translating it on my keyboard to like the keys it correlates to so I could play All-Star in the game. You actually can't do that though. It's like there's some rule against playing non-Final Fantasy XIV songs in Final Fantasy. But that's understandable. It's just like a copyright thing, something the company has to do. Number 9, marriage. Now, this is one of those features that some absolutely embrace and adore, but others cringe at it when it's mentioned, right? And that is the feature of in-game marriage. That's right, you can purchase a marriage outfit and mount to get married to another player in-game. An event is held called the Ceremony of Eternal Bonding, implying that you can't get divorced, where you and your partner set up a date for the marriage ceremony and invite all of your friends to the in-game wedding. Why do I love this feature? I don't. But it's still a really cool addition to the game, and a lot of players really adore this feature and make a big deal out of it. I think most of the time, the marriages that take place in the game are just for roleplay purposes and nothing too serious. But players still really seem to love it. And for that, I love it. I love to see people love features about the game and enjoy, harmless things, right? Like, number 10, the skies. Skies in Final Fantasy is something I've always adored. Just take a moment to look at all these skies and check out how beautiful they are. Subscribe to my channel in the meantime if you want to support the channel. Number 11, sightseeing. Sightseeing is a feature in the game that enables players to enjoy the beautiful landscapes and skies Eorzea has to offer. The sightseeing log is basically a collection of puzzles that are correlated to a certain location in Eorzea. Once you figure out what location the text is referring to and at what time of day you need to be at that location, you can go to that location and perform a certain emote. Once you do that, the location in your log is marked as discovered. This is a really neat addition, which I think really encourages you to enjoy the little things in the game, I think traveling the world in search for certain locations and enjoying the landscape as you do so provides a really nice break from the heavy dungeoning, raiding, and main story quests. It's just a really laid-back thing, Number 12, character creation. If there's one thing I love about Final Fantasy, it's the character creation. Most of the MMOs I've played feature a pretty basic character creation, meaning there's not too many hairstyles and not too many options to really get your character looking unique. But in Final Fantasy, you're able to really get your character the way you want it to. If you can think of any facial feature, the chances are you're able to customize that in the character creator. I mean, someone literally made Donald J. Trump in the game, and it looks exactly like him, and it makes me so happy. I rarely see two characters in the game that look the same though, and at the end of the day, is that not the point of character customization? To create a character that's unique and distinguishable from the others. One that suits your personality as vividly as possible and as clearly as possible. You want to express yourself. You can't do that with a lazy character customizer, Number 13, the music is beautiful. I feel people often overlook the importance of sound in a form of entertainment. But truly, music can be the difference between someone being bored and someone crying. You know this especially if you've ever cried during a movie. There's a good 99% chance that the moment you cried was while emotional music was playing. With that being said, music is something that Final Fantasy XIV does really well. Unfortunately, I can't play it for you because I'm quite uneducated on the copyright rules from Square Enix, and I spent way too much time on this video just for it to be taken down. But I will tell you that I'll just sit in Ul'dah sometimes and just listen to the night theme. And when I hear Gridania's theme, I'll feel nostalgic about when I first started playing the game 200 hours ago. Or in other words, one month ago. What I'm trying to say is that Final Fantasy XIV's professional music production has a significant impact on the player's experiences playing the game. Let me drink a sip of coffee real quick. Number 14. Music plays behind your mount. Extending on to the last point, where I talked about how music is a significant factor to your experience in the game. Music actually plays when you ride a mount. Each mount has a different theme song, and it plays as you're riding the mount. And in my own experience, this really improves the mount riding. Number 15, job freedom. Final Fantasy XIV's a little unique when it comes to the class system. No, not that class system. I'm talking about the in-game class system. To elaborate, in the game, if you get your warrior to max level, but want to go on to play a scholar, Instead of making an entirely new character and leveling him or her up as a scholar, you can simply level up a scholar on the same character you played the warrior on, and you can switch between them anytime you want. This is healthy for your experience in the game, I feel, as if you get bored playing a certain job, you can simply just take up another one. There's jobs for every type of person as well. You can be a fisher if you feel relaxed, a paladin if you're feeling heavy, a bard if you want to be mobile, or even a cook if you just want to make food. There's jobs for everyone, and you can alternate between them based on how you're feeling and what you're feeling. Number 16, story-drivenness. For me to be invested in a game, it needs to be driven by story. I need to feel like the characters are going somewhere. In the game, I need to feel joy, sadness, plot twist, and character development to be able to feel emotionally invested in the game. I feel like if a game doesn't have at least a little bit of story behind it, it doesn't feel as rich and is worth playing. A game could have all the best features, but if it has no plot, it feels less rich, and the enjoyment found in the game is rather superficial. Adding story makes the enjoyment in the game deeper than just having fun, but it makes the enjoyment go soul deep, because you get emotionally attached to the characters and you want to see them thrive. In the game, when the characters are happy, you're happy. When they hurt, you hurt. Story is something I think the game does really well, and it definitely wouldn't be the same game at all without the story. When I exit Final Fantasy, what makes me want to come back is wanting to know what's going to happen next in the story. Number 17, voice acting. Voice acting is pretty uncommon in MMORPGs, and what's even more uncommon is good voice acting in MMORPGs. But I think it's safe to say that Final Fantasy XIV, for the most part, has pretty decent voice acting. This really helps you get more attached to the characters, as you have a voice to attach to their faces. When you read dialogue, it's not just some empty voice in your head or words on a screen, but you can hear emotions and emphasis coming out from the characters' mouths. Again, really helpful for the game, as it is indeed a story-driven game. Number 18, going to bed. Roleplay is something that's huge in the Final Fantasy XIV community, so it's important that the devs model the game in a way to suit the desires of the players. Of course, you don't have to roleplay if you don't want to, but if you're huge with roleplay, Final Fantasy may be the MMO for you. One of the ways I feel 14 really assists the immersion is letting you log out by getting in bed. You can go to the Adventurers Guild in a city and retire to an inn room. In this inn room, you can access your glamour dresser, play with toys, get a haircut, watch cutscenes, and of course, log out by going to bed. There's a weird satisfaction to getting in bed and logging out, and a day later logging back in for your character to get out of bed. Number 19, the hype. The amount of hype around 14's player base is literally unreal. Let me tell you, people care about this game. Take it from a guy who spends time on the Final Fantasy XIV Twitter and follows a bunch of Warrior of Light accounts. For over a week before patch 5.3, the amount people were talking about the patch just displayed so much excitement. People were endlessly talking about their predictions for the game and how they would cry if a certain character died. To put it plainly, people just really care about this game. If you take away Final Fantasy XIV from a dedicated player, it's like taking drugs from a drug addict, taking a treat from a dog, or taking an Oriental e-girl away from a simp. They just can't live without it. This is definitely more than a game to the majority of dedicated players. It's a world that holds progress, lovable characters, and friendships with other players. Number 20, the community. Now, this is kind of an extension on number 17, but the community really is what makes the game, well, what it is. I personally quit World of Warcraft just because of the community there. Even though I personally enjoyed the game, upon quitting, I heard that Final Fantasy XIV had a very welcoming community, and the people helped sprouts, or new players, in the game. The first free company I joined, which is the equivalent to a guild. First guild I joined, I was a sprout, and I basically asked in chat where to get a certain item. Not only was I given a comprehensive response to my question, but a player from the free company met me in the Black Shroud where I was questing, and gave me a whole stack of that item. It was glamour prisms. This was extremely nice and totally unexpected. That's not it though. On top of that, I was given 100k gil as well to help me out on my journey. So at this moment, I knew that I'd be hooked on the game for a while. Obviously, every community isn't without its bad apples, right? But for the most part, the 14 community is one that displays an insane level of hospitality and friendliness. Number 21, Discord. Alright. This one could admittedly go under the last segment, but in my eyes, it's still kind of a separate thing. And that is that the Final Fantasy XIV community uses Discord. I've always been a huge non-sexual lover of Discord, as I think it's great for building communities or organizing community chats. I'm not sponsored by Discord, I just really love it, I promise. There exist countless Final Fantasy XIV communities on Discord, which really encourages meeting new friends and such. The Balanced Discord, for example, is a Discord server which includes countless resources for gameplay and also has places to meet new people and talk about the game. The server even has resources for other Discord servers where you can meet even more people. I'm not even sponsored by the Balanced Discord either, I just think it's really good. Number 22 is lore. Now, I won't spend this segment talking about the actual lore of 14 because that would take a while, but I'll just be talking about the depth of the lore. Final Fantasy XIV features extremely deep lore, in which you could probably spend days just studying the lore and not even playing the game. The whole concept of Ether, which is like the metaphysical life force. Hydaelyn, primals, races, kin, the city-states, all of the classes, and just everything. It's all super interesting. I could probably spend a whole video just talking about one given lore subject. If you don't believe me that the lore goes super deep, know that there's 2 whole encyclopedias dedicated solely to Final Fantasy XIV lore. They are filled with information, in tiny words. That's how you know if a book is big, if it has tiny words and a lot of pages. I say all this to say that if you're a sucker for knowledge, then Final Fantasy XIV might be the game for you if you're looking for an MMO. Number 23, Crystal Exarch. If you play Final Fantasy XIV, that should be enough said. If you haven't played enough to know who that is, keep playing, because I don't want to spoil, but he's a pretty lovable character. There's something about him that just like, he's a magnet, bro, to like, gay people. I don't know why I said that. Gay people, sure, but like, everybody, really. Gay people and females are usually attracted to him, is what I've found. But he's a good character. I'm not gay. Number 24, Etherology is interesting. If you didn't know, Ether in Final Fantasy XIV is the metaphysical energy found throughout the world in Final Fantasy XIV. It's the source of all magic and life. Ether flows throughout the world, and disruption of its flow can cause catastrophic events. The best way I can explain Ether is it being an invisible energy. Where you find more vivid locations in Eorzea, there's also more ether. So there's more ether in a forest compared to a desert, because there's more life in a forest, so there's more ether. You get it? When someone dies, the ether that inhabits them and makes them a human, it exits their body and resorts to the ethereal realm, where the ether is then recycled to give another body new life. It's literally exactly like reincarnation. As a person who enjoys studying Eastern spirituality, and as ether is very similar to what the East teaches about metaphysics, I find ether extremely interesting. It definitely adds a cool flavor to the game, as we get to know what happens when someone dies, or where magic comes from, and etc. Again, for you folks that like knowledge, you know, it's the epitome of a knowledge game. Number 25, the cutscenes are dope. Okay, so just like voice acting, cutscenes are pretty rare to find in MMOs. But what's even more rare is good cutscenes in an MMO. No, I'm not talking cinematics, I'm talking cutscenes. Granted, not all of 14's cutscenes are the best, in my own opinion, but they get the job done at telling a story combined with voice acting. I think the dev team does a great job, especially when it comes to fighting scenes. Seeing Yugiri and Thancred fight side by side was honestly really badass. And of course, the voice acting added on top of this makes it even more cool. So, is Final Fantasy XIV being a story-driven game? I think the cutscenes are extremely important to the storytelling of the game, and I think the dev team did a good job executing these scenes. Number 26. Events are cool. Final Fantasy XIV has some really interesting events that are worth investing time into. Some of my favorites are the Moonfire Fair, a beach-themed event where you can dress up your character with beach-themed clothes, and the Moogle Treasure Trove, where you can earn tomestones from dungeoning, which you can exchange for cool rewards. The game also collabs with other brands to bring another universe into the game. For example, the Yokai Watch event, or the Dragon Quest event. You could get items in 14 themed after these other universes. Events in Final Fantasy XIV is something that the dev team seems pretty serious about, and it adds some really nice flavor to the game, so it doesn't always feel like the same when you log on. There's always something new to enjoy, something new to experience. It's not always the same game you're logging into. Number 27 is the Manderville's Gold Saucer, the infamous Gold Saucer. The Gold Saucer is an attraction in-game that can also give you a break from the everyday questing and dungeoning. It's basically a fantasy-themed casino. In the Gold Saucer, you can participate in various attractions to earn MGP, or Manderville Gold Saucer points, to then purchase some really cool rewards, such as this new sexy dance that's the talk of the town really right now. These attractions include chocobo racing, a fashion contest, mahjong. It's some Asian thing. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mahjong. It's M-A-H-J-O-N-G. Mahjong. Cactpot and other mini games. The Gold Saucer is always a fun feature to go to whenever you just need a break from being the Warrior of Light, as it can be some pretty heavy work. I feel the Gold Saucer is also fun experiencing with other players. It's like a party thing, you know? Gold Saucer is like the thing you go to on the weekends. Number 28, Glamour. I shouldn't need to say too much about this one, because you already know the beauty of Glamour and how great it is. But for those of you who don't really know, let me explain in short. Glamour is basically a way to decorate your character with good-looking clothes, where you change the appearance of the armor you're wearing to another piece of gear. The dev team adds some really neat clothes to the game that you can use as Glamour, and people seem to get really creative with it. I know that a lot of people who play 14 spend most of their time on Glamour, and there's a good reason for that. It's because you want your character to look good, right? You want your character to express you as best as possible, and Glamour is a tremendous way to do that. Number 29, Humor. Final Fantasy's got a good sense of humor, right? And that's one of the things I've always loved about the game. One of my favorite humor moments of the game is the Manderville's questline. You basically help out this clumsy detective through his detective endeavors. It includes a lot of irony and WTF moments, which I'll abstain from talking about to keep it spoiler clean. A good laugh is all we need sometimes to lift our spirits, right? And I think 14 does a decent job at providing that laugh. You can definitely tell that the developers had fun making the quest lines. Speaking of the devs, see what I did there? The devs actually and genuinely care about this game and your experience playing the game. I don't feel like they view it as a cash grab, or I don't feel like they try to play you to get your money, but they genuinely care about your experience playing. If players request a feature, they'll seriously add it, and if not, they'll provide a pretty detailed response of why they can't add it, making sure the players understand why they can't. They treat the players like real people and not just numbers, is what I'm saying. I think the best example of this fact is whenever a player asks this question during Gamescom to the main developer Yoshi P. He said, "Hey Yoshi, I love Final Fantasy, but it's hard to keep playing your game, and now I'm taking a break here. Sorry for asking this, but is there a way or reason to keep playing? Or anything that you can teach me how to keep my motivation for playing your game?" Now, as the developer of the game, what do you think Yoshi would say? You'd think he'd scour his brain to give the player a reason to play, as after all, his pay does depend on how many people play this game. And this isn't one player, this is Gamescom. So Yoshi's response will also affect the audience or anybody watching Gamescom, not just this one individual. But instead of giving the player a reason to keep playing the game, Yoshi says this: "It's alright, it's okay to not play it every day. Since it's just a game, you can stop forcing yourself if it's hard on you to keep that up. Rather, it'll just pile up unnecessary stress if you limit yourself into playing just that one game, since there are so many other games out there." This response was wild and had people in shock, right? As this man is trying to promote his product, not tell the person to go play another game. Gotta love the devs for this game, man. Number 31, Variety of Dances. The variety of dances is something I've found interesting about the game from the start, because I was so used to WoW, right? In most other MMOs, your character can only do one dance, and that's done with the /dance emote. But in Final Fantasy XIV, you can do a whole variety of dances once you unlock them. I know this seems like a really simple thing and kind of pointless, but it's small things like this that enable you to express your character even further. Being able to do only one dance feels somewhat restrictive, And the point of social games like this should be to express yourself as much as you'd like. Number 32. There's so much you want to do. So, as I said earlier in this video, I came from playing WoW. Having a max level character, I always had in-game content to take part in, such as reputation grinds, getting my item level up, and more. But something was off. I would spend countless hours doing these things, but I didn't really enjoy them. I felt like there was so much I had to do, but I got a different vibe in Final Fantasy. In Final Fantasy, I was also overwhelmed with all the stuff to do. But it wasn't like a negative thing, right? Like in WoW. It didn't feel like a chore like WoW. It was stuff I actually wanted to do. In Final Fantasy, you're not overwhelmed with chores. You're overwhelmed with so much stuff you deeply and genuinely want to do. I can't wait to get to level 70 to access Crystarium. I just unlocked Ishgard today, and I'm super happy. I know I'm like really early in the game, but still. I can't wait to spend countless hours on Glamour when I'm done with all the MSQs. I can't wait to mount farm and RP with people and make new friends in the game. In Final Fantasy XIV, there's genuinely so much I really want to do, which is honestly a really good feeling. I wouldn't be able to make a 32 reasons I love this game list with any game. So I mean it when I say there's so much I love about the game, there's so much I want to do. The game brings a different vibe. But hey, if you enjoyed the video, don't hesitate to subscribe. If you didn't like the video, you can just move on with your day and completely forget about me. But thank you for watching anyway. I'll be making more videos like this soon, so have a good day. Stay tuned. See ya. Peace.